Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Back Log Banter. I'm Tucker, and that's Abram. And today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be talking about an old video game that is new to both of us. Today we're going to be talking about Halo Combat Evolved, which we both just played on PC through Xbox Game Pass, and we've got some thoughts on it. I prepared and took notes, and Abram is going to conjure up the Backlog Banter spirit and pull off the cuff BS out of every one of his orifices.
Every single one of them,
Mhm.
including my mind holes. Fucking through the power of osmosis, I'll bring my thoughts from in there to my computer, to my Blue Yeti, to you, and tell you about Halo Combat Evolved. That is one of my top 50 video games of all time, having not completed it. I played it a long time ago, actually on Mac, because that's the only Halo that came out on Mac. And we had a Mac in my house when I was younger. But this is really, I consider my first full experience with the game, right? Played through it start to finish. We're not talking about multiplayer today. Multiplayer can go fuck itself. We're talking about the campaign. We're
Yep.
talking about Master Chief, Cortana, 343, Guilty Spark, all of our favorite friends, all of our boys and girls. And I have to say, Tucker, I don't know really how much you like the game because you do this dumb thing where we like be professional and don't talk to each other about what we're going to discuss until we do it, to keep it fresh and fun for the audience.
Yeah.
So I think you like the game. You told me that you fucking hate Mission 5. So I don't know how much it's going to impact your whole experience. But here's what I'm going to say. And I've been ruminating on this. I've been fucking moisturizing these thoughts in my mind. I want them nice
That's
and
delicious.
silky and smooth for the audience. I think that Halo Combat Evolved, what Bungie has created in this game, is one of the most elegantly simple first-person shooters I've ever played that relies on really great core mechanics, really great visual design, and really great map design to put forth a sci-fi shooter that feels retro but feels timeless in the sense that these mechanics just work. In the way that Doom, the original, the classic Doom, still feels good today,
Yeah.
Combat Evolved feels good today because Bungie was thinking fucking down the line, right? They weren't following the trends. They made a brand new shooter, a console shooter that took what GoldenEye did and fucking put it in the modern framework, and they released a game that I think is timeless. So I absolutely loved my time with Combat Evolved. I do have issues with it, which we're going to get into for sure. It's not perfect. It's got a lot of growing pains, a lot of technical growing pains.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I really, really loved it.
So for me, I am someone who is not incredibly experienced with shooters. I just had a Wii when I was growing up and didn't play any shooters on that, even the crappy ones that existed for it.
You didn't play the Conduit?
No, I don't even know what that is, to be completely honest. But so my experience with shooters sort of came in my later years as a gamer. I played a lot of Overwatch when it came out, and I still play it occasionally. I played the original Half-Life. I played both Portals. I've played a lot of games with shooting in them, but not a lot of first-person shooter campaign games. So when I played this game, I don't know really what I was expecting. I think I kind of got what I was expecting, which is a game that is clearly old and has a lot of things that have been done better, in my opinion, in newer games. But it has a charm and a style that is clearly a foundation, like what's what I'm looking for, a foundation that inspired a lot of what was to come. And the game that I kept comparing it to in my mind, a game that I personally prefer more is Half-Life. And they're similar in certain design aspects, similar era, and both of them very good. It's just about personal preference in design and story and things like that. But it is a good game. It is not one that I would say I liked a lot, but it is a game I had a decently good time with, and I'm excited to see where the series goes after this.
See, what I heard was like good stuff, and then you're like, oh, but I don't like that much, so you're wrong. So here's the bottom line. I want to get into it with you, but I think first, before we get into it, because I think most of my thoughts revolve around gameplay. I'm sure most of yours do too. Let's talk first about the story because it's light and Combat Evolved, but I do think it's compelling. So I think we should touch on that and then shove it out the door so we can talk about gameplay. So from a narrative perspective or just a world building perspective, what do you think of Halo?
Here's the thing. There's this is one coin, all right? And as you know, there are two sides. to each coin. And on one side, you've got the lore, and the lore of Halo, even in this 2002 shooter on the Xbox, is incredible. There's this
Yes.
concept of these giant fucking rings that have land on them in atmospheres and environments, and they're apparently a weapon that will destroy all life in the universe. And there's the Flood, which shows up halfway through, which is super cool, and the Covenant is this alien race that's been apparently warring with humanity. There's all this stuff in there that's really cool, and there's Cortana, and there's a history to it that I find really compelling. And then the other side, there's the story of the game, the narrative, which is incredibly light. And personally, I found that aspect of it not very compelling. I wanted to play the game to find out more of the lore, but I didn't really care about Master Chief. Cortana was fun when she showed up occasionally, but she wasn't involved as I would like. Guilty Spark was great, but only there for like a third or a fourth of the game. And all the other characters are just generic Marine characters. I didn't give a shit about Captain Keyes. Runner only had a voice, but I mean, at least she had more personality than all the other fucking human characters in the game. And aside from Guilty Spark, there wasn't really a villain per se. And when I talk about the story and outside of the characters in terms of the reasons you're going from level to level and the motivations that the characters have, that is where I personally find the most fault, because it kind of felt like they just picked you up and dropped you. Like they come up with some weird ass reason for you to travel to a new area, and that's what you did. So it's sort of, for me, it was playing level to level because I needed to beat the game, and not because I was actively engaged. Although I was interested in the world and the characters, and as I said, I know this is a foundation, it's a building block, and the story and the world and the games expand from here. So I'm interested to see where it goes, but those are my two sides of the proverbial coin.
Here's what I think. Here's what I like about what you're saying is that I agree with a lot of it. The lore is fantastic. The story is late, but I think those are both intentional facets of the Halo experience. What I like about Halo is this fun tension between its very overt Saturday morning cartoon elements in storytelling with how larger than life a lot of its characters are. Like the Sergeant is, the way he talks, the way he interacts with people, all of the dialogue, especially some of the dialogue between the Sergeant and some of the Marines during the Flood mission when they get attacked. And then like Cortana, Chief, they're all very cartoony characters, right? And I like having that contrasted with this really deep and interesting lore with the Covenant, and you learn more about them in Halo 2 and further games. And I think it's compelling to present what is a fairly simple story that carries you through what is largely a gameplay experience, while underpinning it with all of this really interesting lore and all these interesting locations. And for me, for my taste, being primarily a gameplay first guy, I like that secondhand storytelling of coming to these locations and learning about them, a little bit through the main story beats, but just getting to experience them, getting to see, how the Covenant react, how the fucking grunts fall asleep, or seeing all the different locations, hearing Guilty Spark talk about the Flood, as you're fucking running from them, having the fucking fear of God in you that one's gonna have a rocket launcher and blow you up in one shot. I think they do a really nice job balancing their two elements. Halo's not a story-heavy experience, at least not initially. As you get into later games, it is more. But I don't know. I think that tension is what makes Halo interesting, because it's not super serious all the time, but it's also not lighthearted to the point of parody like something like a Duke Nukem is. So I think it finds a fun balance in the middle, which I really like.
I think you actually sort of more sold me on the positive aspects of the story being weaker. Wouldn't say I'm necessarily a gameplay first guy. I would say I weigh story and gameplay about equal. So I did have frustrations with the story being light, but now that you mention it, the contrast between the deep lore and the cartoony characters is actually something that is a pretty unique, not necessarily super unique, but it's a cool concept that I think is handled well. And it reminds me of my only other experience that I've had with Halo, which is through the Red versus Blue Rooster Teeth series, which I think is absolutely incredible. And it essentially is that concept of the contrast between deep lore and cartoony characters cranked to fucking 15. right? You got Caboose and you got Donut and you got Sarge and you got Griffin Simmons, and they're just beating the fuck out of each other, and they're idiots. And then there's a whole backstory with AIs and all this shit. And once you get into it, it becomes really cool. And I think that that's something I need to take into consideration when thinking about the Halo story, is that, there is positives to both aspects.
I haven't thought about red versus blue since I was in a fucking airport terminal in probably 2011 watching red versus blue on my fucking first generation Kindle Fire. I don't know. That's such a fucking acute memory that has no relevance to anybody other than me. But it's very interesting you bring up red versus blue. But to avoid a fucking internal collapse as I recognize the passage of time, let's talk about the gameplay of Combat Evolved, because I think that's where we can really get into it. I want to hear you go first so I can fucking, in the words of Ben Shapiro, cripple you with facts and logic.
Oh, good Lord. Bringing up Ben Shapiro and talking about Halo is not my idea of a good time. But you know what is my idea of a good time? Let me...
Halo.
Maybe that transition didn't really work. Yeah, I think I need to base my points on what you're gonna fucking rant
You fucking
about.
take a moment, you sit back, you drink a nice Shirley Temple, eat the cherry, take your time. It's not a Shirley Temple, but it'll do. Sip from your Camelback, take a swig, and listen to this. Excuse you.
Oh my.
In contrast to Tucker, I have a lot more experience with shooters than he does. And primarily, I have experience with the more modern crop of shooters, your Destinies and your more recent Call of Duty games, and fucking the new Doom, and then my favorite machine games.
I did play that.
Yeah,
I don't think about that as a shooter though. I don't know
it's
why.
very good, and Doom succeeds for some of the reasons that this game doesn't. We'll get into that in a second. But my fucking favorite shooter, some of my favorite games of all time, the machine games, Wolfenstein games. So these shooters are my bread and butter, right? And a lot of these shooters, Destiny to a lesser extent, I mean, this is Bungie, so we're gonna fucking take it as a football and toss it out of the playing field. So that's not what we're gonna talk about today. A lot of modern first-person shooters are more cover-based, and they are more about reactionary gameplay, where you're reacting to the enemies as they come into you. You're at a disadvantage, whether that's because you're more spongy, or your enemies are dug in more, you're designed to be behind cover more often. They're more methodical shooters. Even the best ones like Wolfenstein, which on lower difficulties you can fiddle around with a little more, they're designed to put you at a disadvantage. By contrast, Halo fucking puts you at an advantage. Master Chief is a god on the battlefield. He is a fucking god. And this makes for really compelling gameplay where it's not about cover, it's about movement. And it's about jumping around the battlefield and being empowered by the game's systems. The guns aren't particularly complex. You got pretty archetypical weapons. You got the fucking awesome Magnum. You got your assault rifle. You got the Covenant weapons. But by and large, they're standard fare. And you have environments that even a lot of the interiors are more open. They're more arena style, like a Quake or like the Halo multiplayer. And if you want to succeed, it's about getting up in the faces of the Covenant. And they're designed in a way that you can do that, because the weapons are not hit scan. Hit scan, if you don't know, is someone points their weapon at you and fires and you're immediately hit by it. That's how a lot of weapons operate in modern shooters. Then there's projectile weapons, and basically anything you're going to get attacked with is a projectile in this game, which means that you have a lot more freedom in how you approach a battlefield. You're not going to be behind cover waiting for your opportunity to strike. You're going to be Master Chief. You're going to be fucking bunny hopping around the maps that Bungie has built, taking people out, picking up their weapons, and chaining kills together, much in the way you chain together kills in Doom. And by stripping out the cover elements, by stripping out a lot of the enhanced mobility that recent online multiplayer games have, sprint, clamber, slide, Halo 5's fucking ground pound, boosters, power punch, all of that shit. By getting rid of all of that and stripping you back to these core components, you have a shooter that's a lot more freeing and a lot more about player agency and about fluid moment-to-moment gameplay than a lot of modern shooters are. So it feels very refreshing to go back to Halo 1.
Honestly, that's a lot of points that I would not have even considered bringing up if I were to talk about the gameplay. Because for me, I really did enjoy the shooting mechanics. I thought everything about Master Chief himself, in terms of the amount of shields you have, giving you leeway in order to be able to be more aggressive, and the picking up guns and sort of scavenging what you can get in terms of picking stuff up from enemies' corpses to keep yourself going and keep on attacking. I thought that all was really good. But when I think about the gameplay of this, it's more about the balance and the map design and things like that, which is where a lot of my problems with the game come in. Not that the core gameplay mechanics, as you were saying, what you just ranted about, they're all very solid and a foundation, and stripping it back and going to something that is more basic but has a different feel to it is actually very interesting. But I think in terms of the fact that this is an older game and there is less game design experience there because it was made 20 years ago, I think that that's where most of my flaws with this game come in. There is and I'm going to just lay out a fucking list of things problems that I had with this game. All right. I think the checkpoint system is utter crap. There are some levels where every room you go through, there will be another checkpoint. There are some levels where you will go 20 minutes through rooms of people just throwing shit at you, and you'll be very low health because there's not very many health packs, which is another thing I have a big problem with. And you'll die near the end, you'll just be sent back, and it's just unbalanced and unfair and doesn't make much sense. Because if they know that checkpoints should be consistent in some levels, why isn't it like that in other levels? Don't know. And then in terms of the map design, I think that most of the interior maps are just bad. They're not well designed. All the rooms look the same. It repeats the sections over and over again. You actually end up playing 2 of the maps twice, basically backwards in later levels, which is, I think, a hardware limitation most likely. But that's okay. Still mildly frustrating. But the fact that all the rooms look the same, the signposting is not fantastic. There are arrows on the ground in some levels, but not in other levels, which is strange. The textures are very repetitive, and I just found them to not be very interesting to want to explore, and I always felt lost. It was always very frustrating to me because unless I could find new enemies to shoot, I would end up just feeling like I had seen the same shit over and over and over again. And then in some levels that aren't the interior ones, like Mission 6, which is the swamp, that is a different case where I felt like I just needed to keep pushing through because the battle was so large that I didn't necessarily feel like I could keep taking on things, which I think is intentional design. And I'm not actually, that's not a bad thing. But yeah, I had a lot of problems making my way through this game because I felt like a lot of the game design philosophies of an older game being older just did not click with me, and I found pretty frustrating.
Here's what I'll say to you. I'll meet you halfway. Here's what I want to do for you today. Do you see these 2 things? This is a Jolly Rancher wrapper, and this is an empty carton of a Mandarin oranges. These are garbage. So is the checkpointing system in Halo Combat Evolved. That's where I'll meet you in the middle here. Because I had an issue where I found I registered checkpoints very irrationally. I would go through a section, get fucking murked, come back through it, and fucking duck off into a corner to recoup my shields and get a checkpoint there.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
I didn't get a checkpoint
That's another thing I didn't mention. Sometimes there's just checkpoints in random places that you're not necessarily supposed to go to, like they're not on the main path. That's very strange.
So the checkpointing is clearly, to use a fun biology terminology for you, a vestigial structure of game design from a bygone era. And the map design, I'm even willing to meet you part of the way on too. The interiors are labyrinthine and not necessarily in a good way, because it is a lot of text repetition. It's a lot of walking into a room and feeling like I'm pretty sure I've been in a room with this exact same level geometry, like literally in the exact same places. But for me, that there's only one instance. I forgot the name of the mission, but it was the first flood mission where I found myself actually fucking lost. A lot of the times, Bungie is good at putting enemies strategically, so you go from enemy clump to enemy clump in a way that propels you through the mission. And I didn't find myself too often getting lost. But I think that the problems with the interior design was outshined immensely by Bungie's handle over scope and scale in the exterior locations, which I think are fucking awesome. Because they're these large sandbox environments that have weapons and items strewn strategically, and there's enough space for you to really move around and take advantage of the fact that Halo is a more free-form, up-in-your-face, first-person shooter. They design these locations in a way that really lets you bebop and scat, to use some backlog banter terminology,
Mm-hmm.
around them in a really compelling way. And there'll be Covenant placed in interesting locations, and ghosts and banshees and warthogs strewn in a way that really lets you feel empowered by your environment. And instead of it feeling too large and too empty, it feels like an actual sandbox where you have a lot of different ways to approach a combat scenario. And I mean, some of it is so iconic, like the entire silent cartographer mission is fucking phenomenal. The way that they transition you very seamlessly from these larger scale conflicts with a bunch of your Marines and a bunch of Covenant to a more smaller scale affair in your Warthog, and the way you're moving through the different locations, and the way that the beach connects back into itself after you have found the shield room, and released the security locks. A lot of it is really well designed, which makes the not so well designed ports stand out even more.
Yeah.
But for me, it also makes them a little bit more excusable when I fucking step out onto the beach in South Photographer and that goddamn awesome soundtrack is playing in my headphones. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm playing Halo. This is fucking awesome. And I'm fucking scoping in with my fucking Magnum, and I'm taking people out. It feels so good, and the map design largely empowers you as Master Chief, which I really, really appreciated.
Yeah, I didn't talk about the exterior maps as much. The ones that I had problems with were the ones sort of in the middle of the game. The early ones, first like what 2, 3, and 4 in terms of mission structure. Those are all really cool, iconic locations. The idea of looking up and seeing the rest of the Halo arcing around you is
Yeah.
it's just beautiful. Like that's so cool. And the fact that I have no experience with Halo and didn't know that there was an actual Halo that was a thing.
In our universe, yeah, our solar system.
Oh yeah, it's out there. We should take a field trip. But that was a very, very cool experience for me because essentially I went in blind, and that's what someone experienced when they got an Xbox in 2002 and stepped out onto the land of the ring, and that was fun. But the ones that are more snowy, which is mission 5 in particular, and I think sort of one of the return missions in like 8 or something like that.
Yeah, the 2 betrayals is Back in the Snow.
Yeah,
I believe.
Man, I hated those so much because not only were there too many enemies, not enough health packs, and I think not necessarily the best placement of vehicles and such. I always felt like I just had to just get in a vehicle and fucking beat it because there was too much shit going on, and I felt like that was not necessarily well designed. But yeah, I don't know. I could rag on Mission 5 a lot, and I may do that in some point in this discussion. But I did not enjoy the exteriors even of the snowy ones as much as I did the beach one and the forest one or whatever, mountain ones.
I don't know. I gotta say I disagree. I disagree for a couple of reasons. For one, they give you a lot of fun power weapons to play around with. You get to use a sniper a lot more in these sections, which is just a lot of fun. Fucking one shot in as elites on mouse and keyboard. The fucking well placed sniper bolt is awesome. And getting to get in the Scorpion tank, I think, is really fun too. I think those are empowering sections, and the thing I really want to highlight about this game is its visual clarity. The way that you can tell from a distance who is a grunt, who is an elite, what you're dealing with, right? I think that's accentuated in the snow areas, which actually helped for some planning. When I was going into the larger groups, for when it's like, okay, I gotta fucking throw my plasma grenade over there, I should try to stick that elite. Oh, okay, I'm gonna snipe, I'm gonna get in close. I felt like the snow areas were well designed for that. And I also think it's time so over here, I mean, my webcam can only pick up so much. I want to talk about what's over there, which is the elephant in the room. I want to ask you. I'm gonna ask you, no shame. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cover my eyes, and I want you to raise your hand. I'm gonna ask you a question. I want you to raise your hand. Do you think you're bad at Halo? Raise your hand if you think you are. I'm not.
Wait, what the fuck did you just say?
Are you bad at Halo?
Am I bad? Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not fantastic at video games. I do think that I get easily frustrated, and I don't prefer to feel like I'm being overly challenged. That's something I will fully admit. Choosing
Because
lower
here's what I want to say.
difficulty is my bread and butter. I don't give a shit.
Because here's what I want to say. I think Halo is a pretty accessible experience. Combat Evolved is fairly accessible. But especially some of those later snow missions, especially the snow missions where they fucking throw a lot of Covenant at you. And then when they throw the Covenant and the Flood, it does get kind of difficult. I have played a lot of shooters. I would fucking adore playing Halo co-op with you. But I think I would like you to fucking take a little mental bottle and put a little mental note in here.
I'll take a physical bottle.
Take a physical bottle and write down a little scrap of paper and say, on today, which is July 31st, 2020, I thought the snow missions in Halo were designed poorly. Now, you're going to throw that into the ocean of time, and we're going to fish it back out later. And after you've played more Halo, I'm wondering if your opinion on that's going to be the same.
It's certainly possible that it'll change.
Here's what I want to say. The library is a horseshit mission, which is hard because it's not well designed. My only issues with this game come down to really the Flood, which I love in concept, and it's where we disagree. And maybe I'm just bad at fighting the Flood. Maybe you're bad at fighting the Covenant, I'm bad at fighting the Flood.
That's certainly possible.
I found the library in particular to be an interesting lapse in design judgment on behalf of Bungie. Because I found it to be A, too long, and B, the balance of the Flood to be way off. The fact that you give any enemy, especially one that hoards and comes out of nowhere, rocket launchers, one-hit kill weapons on Chief, in a game with such inconsistent checkpointing, led to me very often getting killed and being frustrated. A lot of times when I got killed by Covenant, I was empowered because I'm like, okay, I know what to expect. I know how to fight these guys. I know from a distance, okay, I can see a blue elite. I can see a red elite. I can see some grunts over here. I know what weapons to expect from these guys. But when there's a fucking bukkake of Flood coming at me, and you can't tell what weapons they're carrying, I found that to be frustrating design. And that for me is where Bungie let me down a little bit.
Yeah, I've got this. I'm noticing a pattern when we record videos, and you say something, and I just get this dumb fucking grin in my face. All right, because I personally found the library not in terms of map design, because it's the fucking, you're going in circles. It's not very interesting. But in terms
and Guilty
of
Spark has to open doors and just leaves. He's like, "Fuck you! You stand here. I'm going to open a door."
Here's the thing. I thought all the other aspects of the labyrinth, except for the fact that it's a little too long. It could have definitely been shorter. But I think all the other aspects of the game take my problems with Halo in terms of the checkpoint system, which I thought was fine in the labyrinth. I didn't have any issue with the checkpoint system in the labyrinth. And the enemy placement and feeling empowered and the balance of weapons and knowing what to do when a wave of enemies came at you to be perfect in the labyrinth. And the reason I personally enjoyed it so much when compared to the outside levels is because I felt like I could get into a groove. I felt like I could see, I could learn the patterns of the enemies coming at me. I could know which weapons to switch to and when to back off and reload. And I didn't have any problems with the rocket launchers. I probably got killed by them like once, but it's like is it like the big yellow thing that comes at you? That's nothing. You can just fucking dodge it. No issues with that at all.
I don't know.
But I thought that the idea of having the what are they called? The drones. They have a special name.
Yeah, the Sentinels, right?
Yeah, the Sentinels. Yeah. Having those fight alongside you, I thought was really cool, and it gave you some leeway to back off and let them take care of some of the enemies while you reloaded, grabbed an extra gun, popped back in, learning to see the map design in terms of this is where the vents come out, so I can prepare and throw a grenade up there, and that'll take care of some of them. I can back off, hop on one of these ramps, and take care of things from the top. And then, in terms of the Flood as enemies themselves, I vastly preferred fighting them over the Covenant because it was very easy to get into a groove in my mind. Okay, I need an AR or a plasma rifle to take out the little guys, and then a shotgun is a one-hit kill on basically everything else. So you can jump around and go bam, bam, bam with the shotgun, and then pull back, pull out your AR, go like learn the patterns of the small ones when you're in the hallways because you can spray in a circle like that. It was very satisfying for me. And as I reached the end of this level and went back into mission 8 or whatever, which is fucking the backwards of mission 5, I realized that there is an imbalance in terms of design in Halo, and we just happen to have opposite opinions on that. But
Yeah, and I think that really exemplifies it because my part of my problem, not only do I feel that some of their weapon and power distribution is unfair, I think the fact that you can fall into that groove feels it feels limiting in comparison to the more sandbox nature of combat otherwise. And for me, the freedom, not only in how I approach a combat scenario outdoors with the Covenant, but also the fact that the Covenant react way more dynamically to Chief than the Flood do. For me, return to the idea of Halo feeling freeing and feeling a little bit more dynamic than other shooters in the sense that, these modern shooters, they're cover based. So you fall into a rhythm of, okay, take position, wait for someone to pop out, boom, take him out, move up cover, boom, wait for someone to pop out. For me, that sort of DNA you can see in the Flood missions because, yeah, like you're saying, you can train them really easily because they're just beelining for Chief. So you can hop up on places and know that they're going to come out of the vents and toss grenades, and you can switch weapons and get into a rhythm. But I think that rhythm takes away from the elegance and the fluidity of the combat against the Covenant, which requires you to be a little bit more in the moment and thinking about your environment and thinking about what you have at your disposal and thinking about what you're being confronted by instead of, okay, small flood, I'm gonna pull out my assault rifle. Okay, big flood, boom, shotgun, pick up more shotgun ammo. Oh, that guy had a rocket launcher. Oh, he didn't. Oh, he had an assault rifle. I'm just gonna run past him, whatever. That for me felt way more gamey and way more homogenized in terms of not only design but limiting in terms of player agency than these more open areas did. So I don't know. I think we just see it differently. I think that's two ends of the same Halo street, and as long as we're on the Halo street, I'm happy.
mm-hmm. All right, so let's see. I've got some more notes. One of my things that I was initially going to put out as one of my negatives is that I felt like I got easily lost in some of the first few levels, the outdoors ones, and you'll notice that while I talked about the outdoor levels, I didn't criticize the first few, which I enjoyed and I thought they were cool because it sort of took me playing through the rest of the game to realize that there's actually something interesting to the level design. Is not only did I feel like I was getting lost and got frustrated by it, but when I realized this later is that the idea of you stepping out and not necessarily knowing where to go, like it doesn't have signposting necessarily like, Uncharted does, like where there's a yellow thing and you have to climb up on there. But that you are stepping foot on an alien planet, right? You're not supposed to know where to go. There could be anything around the other corner. And it actually ended up, to me, feeling more like a design choice than I realized than I thought it was initially, right? Feeling like you're a little bit lost, but then naturally finding where you're going to go. Because you always do feel like you're going to find something right around the other corner and continue on your path. But that initial feeling of feeling lost is actually part of the design and the fact that you're a human on an alien planet, and it's a weird experience. I thought that was pretty cool. It
Yeah, I think
shifted.
from an immersion standpoint, I think that's really good, and I actually didn't notice that. I was thinking about it more from a gameplay perspective of, yes, sometimes it's hard to figure out where you're going because some of the missions feel a little bit either too labyrinthine because of what we were talking about with your qualms about the interior locations, or the fact that some of the larger areas feel a little bit too nonlinear. Like you specifically called me when you're playing the mission. We have to locate the Marines, and you're in the Warthog, and you have to drive around and find the groups. And that felt a little bit too large, a little bit too nonlinear. But Bungie, I think, really smartly and elegantly places enemies in these locations to always pull you ahead. I would have really liked some kind of useful map. I don't understand why that
Yeah.
fucking mini map is why it always says 15 meters and why it sometimes will show you where enemies are and where it sometimes won't.
Yeah.
So I from a gameplay perspective, I was disappointed by that, but I really like that you brought up that immersion thing because that's really cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I've kind of run my course on my points that I want to say. I'm gonna go through a fucking speed round of positive things because I've gotten my qualms out of the way, and I wanna
Sure.
end my opinions on a positive note because I do think this is a good game, and it is one that I definitely want to replay because knowing where to go and how things work is definitely going to behoove me. And I hear people who have played that might not have made fucking sense, but it made sense in my head. I've heard stories of people who grew up with Halo. My friend Joe saying that he plays through it every couple months because he can just run through it in a couple hours because he knows everything like the back of his hand. And I think that's something that I obviously lack because I never played it when I was growing up. And the repetition and knowing where to go and feeling like you know the world, I think will increase my my enjoyment of the game. My one final negative on this game is I think the last mission is just not well designed. I think that the first off, the fucking thing where you have to throw the grenades into the holes to shut down thing, that is insanely repetitive and not like weirdly inconsistent. Like sometimes the sentinels will attack you, sometimes they won't. You have to keep going up that same fucking staircase and jump on those boxes to get up to the thing. It's just not very fun. It goes on too long. And you just Guilty Sparks not attacking you the whole time, only sometimes, and it's very strange. And then you have the fucking Warthog chase sequence. The Warthog is
Oh, I
not
liked it.
designed. The Warthog is not fucking designed for those weird slopes and things. And it gets turned, and you have to go like that, and you get fucking stuck in a thing. It's just the Warthog controls are actually not good. They are not good fucking vehicle controls, and especially in that less level. They're fine when you're out and fucking going up hills and stuff, but when you're in this geometrically unconstitutional map, it's just, good lord, I hated that so much.
I want to give a backlog banter confession, okay? I can't drive a vehicle in real life.
However, I can fucking whip a warthog around, let me tell you something. And here's what I have to say to that. The warthog physics in this game are fucking jank, right? But they're fun. I really think that driving any of the vehicles, but particularly the warthog, is one of the most fun parts of Halo because you gotta feel the motion of the ocean with the way the thing controls. And you gotta figure out, okay, I can basically go this far vertical and I'm gonna bounce and land on my back wheels and be fine. And when you figure that out and they're going, and the music's fucking blasting in the background, the countdown clock's going, you're power sliding, fucking getting those splatter kills on Covenant. I found the self-destruct sequence to be delightful, and my new favorite destruct sequence ahead of Super Metroid's destruct sequence. I don't know, but I do agree that the fucking horse shit grenade into the vent part was infuriating.
Yeah.
With the respawning flood at the top of all the doors. That's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
But I'll meet you, like halfway. We're like the tectonic plates we push together to make a mountain, you know?
Mountain of bullshit. But you know what? It's some good bullshit at this time of night. All right, as I said, it's time for my fucking positive speed round. We talked about this a couple times. The soundtrack of this game is fucking banger. I just went through on Spotify and liked all the songs that I liked. There are some of them that are more atmospheric and not necessarily ones that you'll be like humming in your head or like getting pumped to. But when they're getting pumped, you're getting fucking pumped. And they're really good. And also, in terms of quality, the remaster of this game it's insane how well they redid everything. Now, when you're playing this game on PC, you can hit the fucking tab button and switch back to the original graphics. And when you go back to that, it's very interesting. You know, I was talking about how the textures are repetitive in the indoors. Basically, everything has the same texture in the indoors when you go back to the original graphics. It's not pretty. I don't know how people played that game back then. But staying on a positive note, they did such a good job bringing this world more character and detail, and even having the indoor sequences and the textures, while they're a little bit repetitive, the textures themselves are good. They have all these little beeping lights and the doors look weird and all this stuff, and it gives an alien vibe that I thought was very well handled. And some of the outdoor sequences are just, I mean, they look really, really good, even for a game that was. When was this initially remastered for Anniversary?
It's on the
A pretty long
360. I
time
don't know
ago.
what year. I
Yeah,
think it was 10. I guess what makes sense. It might be 5-year anniversary. I don't remember.
yeah. So that was still a long time ago, and it
Yeah,
still looks
it
good.
is a long time ago.
As I said, I like the library a lot. I thought that was fun. That's a positive. I think that the concept of ending the last few missions of the game, bringing together your knowledge of the Flood and the Covenant and smashing them together and having them fight one another, so it just explodes the scale of the game. And you realize there's 3 factions fighting one another, and it's a free-for-all. And I think that concept is really interesting and compelling. And it made me, you have the strategy where you can sit back and let the Flood and the Covenant fight each other, and then eventually the Sentinels show up when you're going back on the Autumn, and that was really fun to let them fight each other. I thought that was really cool, and just the Flood in general, I think that I personally, as I said, I think they're very well designed. I really like the fact that the little guys do a chain kill if you can get them close together, and I thought that was a very satisfying mechanic. And then, do I have anything else?
Because I have one other thing I want to talk about before I give my
I don't
final
think so.
thoughts.
That's about it.
Here's my final topic I want to bring up before we both give our final thoughts and fucking get out of your hair, or your fucking hairnet, whatever you have on top of your head at the moment. Maybe your chapeau. I love the AI in this game, specifically your friendly AI. I fucking love having the Marines around. They strike an interesting balance between being useful and useless, which makes me want to protect them, but making them not feel like a hindrance on the battlefield. I think they add a lot of scope and a lot of flavor to the experience, hearing their little dialogue lines, but also seeing them fight the Covenant, and wanting to protect them, and seeing them actually kill Covenant. They feel helpful, and it's just fun being like, okay, where are my guys? I want to keep the Covenant off of them. I want to keep them alive as long as I can. It adds a fun little layer of extra challenge for yourself. I know some people immediately rifle down all of their Marines when they play Halo. For me, I always try to keep
Jesus
well,
Christ!
yeah.
What's the? Why would you do that? There's
Even
no
when
benefit.
Even when I played it back on the Mac, I would kill all of them because I wanted to do it myself because I thought I'd be more badass that way. So I'd rifle down my Marines. But here I was like, nah, I want to keep my boys alive. And it was fun. Like when you go into the tractor beam to go after, keys, so you've got all of your dudes there. And when Faux Hammer will bring more troops in, it's just fun. And it adds another element to what I think is a grand experience. So I really like that. It's really neither here nor there. It doesn't add a lot in terms of gameplay, but it's as the kids say, neato mosquito.
The kids are saying that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the kids. They say a lot of things. All right, so what else you got? Final thoughts? I think I've kind of run my course on all my points. I think I kind of put my final thoughts in the opening segment of this video, weirdly enough. So just go back and watch that part of the video if you want my final thoughts.
Here's what I'll say in conclusion. I think Halo, in conclusion, Halo...
Just your fucking monocle.
Here we go. Halo is a very important series to the industry. And I feel that there are examples of games that are pillars of innovation and benchmarks for genres that, in my opinion, just don't hold up very well. Ocarina of Time. But going back to Halo Combat Evolved, for me, was a refreshing experience. And playing through the Halos sequentially after that, I'm having a great time immersing myself in what Bungie created. And playing a shooter that's this elegant in terms of design, not being overbearing, not being bogged down by subsystems, not being funneled through a very singular design philosophy. It was fun to return to, and it is a game that I'm going to replay in the vein of Star Fox 64, because Star Fox 64 is a game I talk about all the fucking time on Back Log Banter, and I know that game so well that I can run through it. And like you were talking about earlier, I want to get to the point where I can just run through Combat Evolved, because those mechanics, that world, what Bungie created here is so timeless, like I said at the beginning of the video, that I just want to keep experiencing it. And I cannot wait for Halo Infinite. And I think that this stands as a strong achievement in game design, in game feel, and world building. And I'm really impressed with it. I'm really, really impressed with this game, and I think it stands the test of time. Absolutely. So those are my final thoughts.
Oh, that was some good points.
My nose
I-
itches. I'm sorry. I didn't want to fucking itch my nose in the middle of my fucking rant. God damn it.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up for this discussion. I have no fucking idea how long this is. I feel like this was a long one. So
a long one.
apologize in not advance, but the opposite of that.
We should make it 117 minutes long.
Oh, that would be. I don't. That's really long. Holy shit!
Just
That would
leave
be
a lot-
almost 2 hours.
Just leave a lot of black screen at the end.
Oh, good lord. That's not a good choice for promoting our videos on YouTube.
Well, I think I have nothing else to say other than fucking play Halo. And if you can't play Halo, play Destiny.
Interesting.
And if you can't play Destiny, play Star Fox 64.
Those are your 3 choices, people. You heard it here first.
And if you can't play any of those, play. I don't give a shit. At that point, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit now about anything or anyone.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this video. See you guys later.
Someone's fucking drag racing outside my house. What is happening?
Yeah.